Welcome to SafeStart's Perinatal video series. I'm Andrew Tan, Community Partnerships Manager for Safe and Sound. I work closely with SafeStart and will be talking about the stages of play. So today, we're going to be talking about what are the stages of play, exceptions to stages of play, and then finally some resources. Let's talk a little bit about what play can look like. So play can look different. It can be something as simple as just clapping hands, or even trying to clap just with one hand, to complicated games or sports. And the thing about play is that it's something that begins right at birth and continues all the way through adulthood. And play is often how children learn how the world works, either through using dolls to pretend to be somebody else, or learning how to share with others. And play is also key in helping kids learn how to communicate, both through sharing and through that collaborative play that we see in sports, games, or dramatic play where several children might be pretending to be other people. Pathways, a nonprofit focused on child development, recommends about 30 minutes of adult-led play, that's structured play, and about an hour of free play, or kind of unstructured play. So that's play where the child is kind of playing their own games and just kind of doing what they're interested in, versus play that's more structured where children may be learning a sport or a game or a new way of playing with an adult or a peer. And something I want to name in this kind of recommendation from Pathways is that this can be really, really hard to do. Parents are balancing a lot, especially parents in the Bay Area are balancing a lot of different hats, and that it's something to kind of aim for, but please, please, please give yourself that space to understand that it's hard to do, and it's just something to try to get to, but definitely not something that's required. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about the different stages of play. So unoccupied play can often look like movements that a baby might do, like dancing or clapping, or sometimes, just kind of like grabbing at different parts of their body, and that's often the way unoccupied play looks. And that begins right at birth up until usually about 3 months. And then there's solitary play. And according to Pathways, they say it goes from birth to 2 years, but solitary play can last past that. I know several adults that may engage in solitary play, and that's play where usually the child is on their own. So for example, that could be something like a toddler is playing with cars on their own, and an adult may introduce themselves to a toddler, and they'll just completely ignore it. And that's a really, really normal part of development. That's part of that kind of early stage of play, of solitary play. And then next, after 2 years, we start getting into spectator play, which is often where kids will observe other children playing, but not necessarily engage with them. So a good example of spectator play is often when children go to a new playground for the first time, they might just stand and watch other kids play. And that's a really normal part of acclimating, and that's a normal part of development, because right now the kids are trying to learn, how do kids play in this playground, what's okay, what's not okay, before they start to engage. And then additionally, there's parallel play. And parallel play goes from about 2 years up to 4 years old. And that is where children may be mimicking play from peers and adults that are nearby. An example of that would be, let's say a child is playing with the trains, and something I would often see in the playroom is that another child would be playing with the trains on the floor next to the train table. And what that child is doing is they're kind of beginning to experiment with engaging with others in play, and that's a piece of development that's really, really normal, and that's often a way that children can begin to advance to other stages of play as well. And then there's associative play. And that goes from about 3 years old to 4 years old. And that's when the play might have some engagement with peers or adults, and it's usually pretty brief or temporary. So we'll see this a lot on the playground or in a playroom. And another example of that is thinking back to the two children playing trains, one on the table, one on the floor, is maybe the child on the floor might begin to ask the child playing on the train table, oh, could I take this train? And that's just a brief temporary engagement where the child might take that toy and then just continue playing in that parallel play. And then next, there's cooperative play, and that goes from about 2 years old all the way through adulthood. And that's a lot of the play that people commonly think about. So that's playing in games, that's engaging in collective storytelling together. And again, to go back to the train table example, that would look like sharing the train table, where maybe the child who has been playing with the trains on the floor takes them up to the train table and begins racing trains with the other child, and that becomes cooperative play. And something to really note about these different stages of play is that children won't stick in just one of these in one play session or even in one whole minute. You know, they might shift through associative play to cooperative play really, really quickly, and that's completely normal. That's kind of part of the stages of play, is they're moving through these stages of play to really learn how to play with others and learn how they can play with their peers. However, something I want to note about stages of play is that sometimes there are exceptions to advancements in stages of play, and that's really, really normal. Oftentimes, children may go backwards in their stages of play due to kind of changes going on in the family, where maybe they have a new sibling that's entered their life, or that they've moved, or they're beginning school, or that their routine has changed. And those can all cause the stages of play to move back a little bit, and that's completely normal. That's something that commonly happens when there are changes in a child's life. Their play may start to look a little bit different. And additionally, in child development, we know that regressions often happen before big developmental milestones get hit. So maybe when a toddler is starting to learn how to potty train, and before they take that final step into being potty trained, they may take steps back in their stages of play, and that's completely normal, and that's something that will kind of shift as they reach those other developmental milestones. And then it can also be part of a child's temperament. So, for example, solitary play may be something that a child engages in because their temperament might be more introverted or might be more low activity. And that's something that is completely normal for children, that sometimes they may not always want to engage in cooperative play. Sometimes they may want to engage in more solitary play or parallel play. And that's just something to keep in mind as you notice these different stages of play in your children, that they may not align exactly with the information I just shared, and that's okay. And then in terms of supporting children with these changes, especially when you notice these changes in their stages of play and in the way they play, it's really great to try to incorporate some of what you're noticing into play. So that might look like when a child has started to kind of play with dolls and they're going to have a new sibling in their life, maybe you can introduce a new sibling in the play and see what the child thinks and what they can say through play. And that's also a great moment that you can also engage the child in their play about how they're feeling about play, and then also how their different dolls are feeling. Finally, some resources. For more information about stages of play, you can go to pathways.org. For more information about child development. For San Francisco Bay Area residents, you can go ahead and call 415-441-KIDS. That's the talk line for Safe and Sound, and that's a 24-hour support line available to parents to kind of provide support as they need. And then finally, you can also go to the safeandsound.org website for Bay Area residents, where you can find more information about groups, drop-in services, and counseling for anyone that's interested. thank you so much for watching this video, and look out for more videos from Safe and Sound.